this is his first time on The Voice Backstage too. Every Monday we have a group that meets called Story Salon. We meet virtually, and he's been in that group with us working out this story, so it's kind of wonderful to watch a story evolve and grow. And I remember the last time he told it, I was like, Vince, that's 3 different stories right there. And just tell them one at a time. I mean, sometimes you don't realize it. You're working on a one-person show. You know what I mean? Like, people have like good stories that lead to good stories and leads to good stories. So anyway, this is probably, you're going to see this for the first time here tonight. Vince Parker working out what will later become his one-person show. But tonight, he's going to give it to us. Here he is, Vince Parker.
We met on the dance floor, but neither of us were dancing, at least not in the traditional sense. We had just been introduced and were already invading each other's personal space. The din of the music had brought our conversation close enough for me to take in the scent of sweet honesty mixed with summer on her skin. We were at the center of a crowd whose attention was centered elsewhere. I could see the bright dresses and ties colored for summer as reflections in her liquid brown eyes. I was wearing my best and only charcoal gray two-piece suit, worn exclusively for funerals or weddings like this one. My eyes drift to her form-fitting coral floor-length bridesmaid gown, which was more flattering than your typical cut. It had a watery glisten to it and revealed just enough cleavage to pique my interest. Her hair, the color of dying red embers. Craving a cigarette, she invited me to join her on the outdoor veranda. I didn't smoke, but I was having some cravings of my own and gladly followed. She smoked Capri Menthol 100s, the kind that were a millimeter longer and supposed to make you look a millimeter more sophisticated. It was working. I watched her expressions through a thin veil of smoke as we talked of careers and families and school. I noticed the pucker of her thin lips around the stem of the cigarette as she took a drag. She leaned forward to flick her ash into the ashtray, never diverting her gaze from mine. I wondered which of us would blink first. Thinking back on it, it feels like she was the movie temptress, luring James Bond to a place of intrigue and danger. A place called love. These days, someone else hearing her story might have labeled her as a childless cat lady. All the signs were there. Her fiercely independent spirit, the elevated IQ, the high moral development, comfortable in her own skin. All I needed to decide was, did I like cats? Before I answer that question, let me tell you more about my wife. Adana was a teacher. She had a master's degree in early childhood education from Erickson Institute here in Chicago. While I wasn't familiar with it, others knew of its reputation as one of the best universities in the country and were instantly impressed. After graduating, she went on to teach at several local colleges as an adjunct faculty member in their early childhood departments, teaching other people's adult children who had dreams of being the teachers of tomorrow. Not a great paying gig, but she felt rewarded in so many other ways. While Michael Jordan is famously quoted as saying, he played for the love of the game, I think the phrase fits teachers much better. One of the places she worked was a bilingual college where many of the students were mothers themselves, largely speaking English as a second language. My wife too was bilingual, not English and Spanish like most of the students, but English and American Sign Language. Now, her primary role was to oversee the child care centers at the 3 campuses, in addition to ensuring that the related grants and contracts were properly administered. She accepted that position only after receiving a guarantee that she would be allowed to teach 1 class per semester, and this, of course, was on top of her administrative duties. So she was responsible, directly or indirectly, for teaching these children well. On the weekends, along with key contributions from some of her mentors and colleagues, she developed the college's first Latino leadership program, which was intended to give participants assistance in becoming the community's leaders in education and related fields. It was well received. Now, prior to teaching college classes, she had been a director of a daycare center, a teacher at a Head Start program in Rockford, and also worked as a teacher in College of DuPage's demonstration center with infants and toddlers. These children were dropped off by their parents every morning into the center's care. She had kids with runny noses who rubbed them in her sleeves, kids who sat in her lap during story time because they weren't feeling well, who promptly vomited on her shoulder. She said the teachers always had extra clothes on hand for these special occasions. All the familiar messy surprises you get when you're a parent. But she wasn't their mom. The times when parents disagreed with policies or practices were the times when that fact was made abundantly clear to her. Did she have kids? No? Then how could she know? Yet I'll bet, knowing my wife as I do, while they were in her care and even beyond, she loved and cared for those kids as though they were her own. I recall one story she told me about this little boy who wouldn't eat his snacks, but they noticed he was stashing them in his pockets. They tried assuring him he could have more if he wanted, but he continued to do this. Finally, one day, they got to the bottom of his behavior. It seems he was saving the snacks for his little sister. She was too young, and so she was home with mom. At that point, they were able to intervene and connect the family with some much needed services, resources. You see, it's not just school kids who are hungry, and it's not just the school kids who are under a teacher's care. Another instance involved her intervening in a dispute over sharing. It seems two little boys, call them Johnny and Billy, were arguing over playing with a truck. She suggested taking turns, and she would watch the time for them. And she would also let them set the time limit. Johnny immediately chimed in with, 1,000,000 minutes, and I go first. Dana calmly said, okay, we'll use 1,000,000 minutes, but since you got to pick the time, Billy gets to go first. Johnny immediately lowered the time to 5 minutes. I think we need an early childhood educator on every government negotiating team. So how could anyone consider her childless when she had already been responsible for so many children getting a head start in life? My wife was the oldest of 5 kids. The difference in age between her and her youngest sister was 13 years. Long before she ever set foot in an early childhood classroom, she was from a very young age expected to help mom and dad with her siblings, keep an eye on them, and all this entailed. Feeding, diapers, burping, playing, reading, cooing, all the other things babies and younger siblings need. I can relate because there are 13 years separating me and my younger brother. The main difference being that between my wife and her youngest sister were 3 other kids, and 2 of her siblings were born profoundly deaf. My wife was often tasked with translating for them and interpreting the world around them. Over time, that responsibility was shared by all the hearing members of the family, but being the oldest, she often got the lion's share. On TV, we often see someone translating speeches in real time. As impressive as that skill is, imagine being at a dinner table with 3 different conversations going on and your little brother or sister poking you in the arm and saying, "What did he say? What does that mean? Tell him this." All the while trying to process it in real time as a child yourself. That's a whole different skill set. Oops. Whether advocating for one of her nieces with a learning disability at school meetings, or being the daycare for another niece for 12 hours a day for the first 2 years of her life, She provided this help with all the safety and expertise you could find in a trained professional, combined with all the love an auntie could possibly give. There were the countless joys we had with our youngest niece and her two brothers at zoos, children's museums, arboretums, movies. There were sleepovers, trying to negotiate bedtimes, the challenges of getting them to eat something with nutritional value. And she had a knack of turning most everything into a teachable moment, including plenty for me. Our nieces and nephews were an invading force of nature that built forts to protect our peace and our little slice of heaven. My head and feet stuck out of both ends of these tiny structures, but they were large enough to hold the entire expanse of our imaginations and keep the dragons at bay. Snow castles were often preserved on our patio until the next thaw. Our kitchen table was now a priceless, well-worn display case for shaving cream sculptures, dotted with food coloring and sprinkles of glitter, or the workspace for homemade Play-Doh or moon sand. Its drawers held the Band-Aids that were used to heal the occasional cuts and scrapes, real or imagined. These were the moments that demanded us to be present, comprised of equal parts fun, learning, safety, and love. All things that developing children need. All that experience we had helping to look after our siblings and other youngsters should have prepared us for children of our own. We had 3 babies, 3 miscarriages to be precise. Nothing prepared us for that. I'm not sure if it's more ironic or tragic that during her far too brief time in this world, this woman who had mothered so many was denied the opportunity to raise children of her own. Then again, how could anyone call her childless when she had already done the most difficult thing any mother can do? Grieve their loss. Thank you.